In this video, you're going to learn all about one of the most important everyday Spanish verbs, dejar. Now, specifically, you're going to learn 3 ways this verb can appear in a Spanish sentence and 9 common uses. Hola, soy Andrés. Hi, I'm Andrew. Llevo más de 20 años aprendiendo español, and I've been learning Spanish for over 20 years. I've also been running a Spanish school for the last 10 years called Real Fast Spanish, which has helped over 3,000 students work towards their goals of conversational Spanish. Now, this video is part of a series I've been doing recently on common everyday Spanish verbs, and the main theme of this series is the 3 main sentence structures you'll come across when studying Spanish, and that's normal verbs, verbs like gustar, and reflexive verbs. Now, many verbs in Spanish, including dejar, will appear in all 3 of these structures, and there will be generally a change in meaning for each. This means for dejar, you could encounter dejo, me deja, or me dejo. So let's start this video with the normal form dejo because it's the most common for conversational Spanish. And the first use of dejar in this form is to leave, as in to leave something behind. For example, I always leave my phone at home when I go to the gym. Siempre dejo mi celular en casa cuando voy al gimnasio. I left the children with their grandparents. Dejé a los niños con sus abuelos. Now note the use of the personal a here. A los niños. We need to add a when the object of the sentence is a person or people that we know. Now, I discussed the use of the personal a in another video. I'll leave a link to the video below. And in fact, this would make actually a good example for today's video. I will leave a link in the description. Voy a dejar un enlace en la descripción. Now, the next common use of dejar means to allow or to let, as in to let something happen. For example, my parents don't let me go out at night. Mis padres no me dejan salir por la noche. Will you let me use your car tomorrow? ¿Me dejas usar tu coche mañana? Literally, you allow me to use your car tomorrow, or do you allow me to use your car tomorrow? Now, often with this use of allowing or letting something happen, we will find it in the command form in Spanish. For example, let me speak, please. Déjame hablar, por favor. Or let me finish the story. Déjame terminar la historia. So with the command form, you'll often see that the me goes after the verb. Déjame. Now, this is the main situation in Spanish when a pronoun goes after a conjugated verb. Normally, it goes before, like mis padres me dejan, or after an infinitive verb, and we'll see some examples of that shortly. Now, the next use of dejar is a great one to practice. It's not too complex, but it shows a deep understanding of the Spanish language when a student uses this correctly. So we have dejar plus de plus an infinitive, which means to quit doing something. So for example, he quit smoking 3 years ago. Dejo de fumar hace 3 años. I need to quit playing chess. It's very addictive. Necesito dejar de jugar al ajedrez. Es muy adictivo. The next use of dejar means to lend. For example, I'll lend you my coat if you're cold. Te dejo mi abrigo si tienes frío. And for this use, it's worth going back to compare an example from earlier. So, will you let me use your car tomorrow? ¿Me dejas usar tu coche mañana? We can drop the usar and simply say, can I borrow your car tomorrow? ¿Me dejas tu coche mañana? Right, now you can see these 2 examples side by side. The first, to allow, is more flexible because we can throw in any verb there. We can say, me dejas hablar, me dejas comer, me dejas practicar. Will you let me speak? Will you let me eat? Will you let me practice? But if you just want to say, will you let me borrow? Then you can drop the verb and simply say, me dejas something, me dejas algo, me dejas tu coche, me dejas tu celular, me dejas tu libro, etc. Now, the next use of dejar is for leaving someone, which could mean breaking up from a relationship. Now, this is quite a casual use in conversational Spanish. So he broke up with his girlfriend, or he left his girlfriend. Él dejó a su novia. Now, note again, we have a personal a here. She left me for someone else. Ella me dejó por otra persona. Next, let's look at dejar as a verb like gustar. So we're going to see it in the form of me deja. Now here we can say that something left us in a certain state or feeling a certain way. For example, the movie left me sad. La película me dejó triste. His comment left me confused. Su comentario me dejó confundido. Next, let's look at dejarse, the reflexive form, which in the first person would be me dejo. Now, the first reflexive use that occurs is when we leave something somewhere by accident. And there are a few verbs in Spanish where this shift in meaning happens between the reflexive and non-reflexive forms. Another good example of this is olvidar. And I talk about this in our video on the accidental se, I'll leave a link to that video below. So taking one of our examples from earlier, but modifying it slightly in the past, we could say, I left my phone at home when I went to the gym. So dejé mi celular en casa cuando fui al gimnasio. So here I deliberately left my phone at home. But if we compare it to this, oh no, I left my phone at home. Ay no, me dejé mi celular en casa. So now you can see these two side by side. In the first case, dejé mi celular. I deliberately left my phone at home because I didn't want to lose it at the gym or something. And in the second case, me dejé el celular. We use a reflexive form here to point out that it was an accident and I didn't mean to leave my phone at home. Another example, I think I left my umbrella in the restaurant. Creo que me dejé mi paraguas en el restaurante. Now, another way we can use the reflexive form of dejar is to talk about leaving something to let it grow. For example, I want to grow a beard. Quiero dejarme la barba. And note that we have a compound phrase here, so we could also say me quiero dejar la barba. Now, this use is often for hair growth. So it could be a beard, it could be a mustache, it could just be normal hair. Now, some girls may go through different hairstyles, and you may know someone that has had bangs and then got rid of them and then grown them back. And so in Spanish, they might say something like, I let myself have bangs again. Me dejé el flequillo otra vez. Now, the last use of dejar for this video is a colloquial phrase that I love because one of my Spanish friends really loves this phrase. And I remember she was really excited to teach it to me many years ago. So we have dejarse llevar, which means to let yourself go. Literally, it would be to let oneself be carried away. Now, we can use this in the sense of love or attraction. So when my friend taught me this phrase, there was a guy who was hitting on her that she liked, but in her own words, she would say that she was overthinking it. Should I date him? Should I not? Should I go out with him? Should I not? She wasn't sure. And I remember she said to me, she often has to remind herself in these situations to let yourself go. Dejarte llevar, let yourself go, and sort of go with the flow. Now, as you can imagine, we can also use this phrase in a very philosophical sense, like one must learn to let oneself go with life because there are many things we can't control. Hay que aprender a dejarse llevar por la vida. Now, we could also use it in a party situation. So we let ourselves go with the music and started dancing. Nos dejamos llevar por la música y empezamos a bailar. And we can also use this phrase for getting carried away in a negative sense with like emotions, like getting really upset or angry. We could say something like, I don't want to get caught up in jealousy or get carried away by jealousy again. No quiero dejarme llevar por los celos otra vez. And note we have a compound phrase. We could say, no me quiero dejar llevar por los celos otra vez. So that wraps up this video on dejar. Seguro que no te dejaste nada sin aprender. If you would like to watch the other videos in this series on everyday Spanish verbs, I'll put the playlist here.